would like to speak about an item on or off the agenda, if you could just please bring it up, and this young lady on my left will be happy to take your slip. If you do have a cell phone, could you put it in a silent mode, please? We'd appreciate that. And with that, we'll have our pledge, and Mr. Hicks will lead us.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, can we get a roll call, Chris?
Commissioner Wolf. Present. Commissioner Reckstad. Commissioner Hicks.
Here.
Commissioner Brzee.
Here.
Commissioner Beck.
Here.
Vice Chair Markarian. Chair Algauer.
Here. Okay, with that, do we have any public comments?
No speaker slips from members of the audience. However, there was one public comment received via email, and it's been passed to the commissioners for your review.
Okay. With that, the consent agenda or minutes. I need a motion. It's going to be one of those nights.
I'll make a motion. We approve the meeting minutes from the June 16th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. This what? Yeah. It's getting, okay, with that, we'll just move into our first item, and that would be an architectural review for case number 03-117. And who will be taking that? All right.
Thank you, Honorable
New
Chairman.
blood.
The applicant, Faros Properties, has submitted case 21-079, an architectural review for 7 single-family homes off the cross streets of Bella Vista and Holmes. A little background for you. In 2003, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing and approved case number 03-117, a tentative tract map to create 8 residential lots of 20,000 square feet or greater on 4.83 acres. An extension was filed for and granted in 2007 for the TTM, and the map was finalized in 2011. In 2021, the project applicant, Faros Properties, purchased 7 of the 8 lots associated with this project. This is the lot now. So the project location is Brookwood Court off of the cross streets of Holmes and Bella Vista, located in the RS20M land use designation and surrounded by similar RS20M parcels. There are 3 elevation types, 2 two-story elevations with 5 total houses and 1 single-story elevation with 2 total houses. This is Plan 1, which is lots 7 and 8. It's a 2-story home. These are the elevations. This is Plan 2, which is lots 4, 5, and 6, also a 2-story. These are the elevations. This is Plan 3, which are lots 2 and 3. Here are the elevations. And this is the material board. Ran through a little too quickly to let you guys know that this is a Tuscan kind of architectural style that's being used. They have low-hipped roofs. I think we can actually go back. Yeah, low-hipped roofs and shallow balconies throughout, and tall arched windows and doors. The applicant is here tonight if there are any questions for he or I.
Okay, thank you. With that, anybody have any questions for staff at this time?
What kind of fencing will be between the properties? And then also what type of fencing will be around the rear and sides of the properties?
So there's no fencing proposed at this time. It's kind of left up to the purchase or the homeowner when that comes around. But there is fencing currently around most of the development for the perimeter, which is largely, I believe, chain link.
Okay, well, we don't allow chain link to go around the exterior of these properties once the properties are built. So is it gonna be a community that's gonna be open and they're not gonna be fences? Or do we need to stipulate that if they put fences, these are the type that they're gonna put in? I mean, we haven't been allowing wood fences or chain link fences. We've always been very specific since I've been on this commission with whether or not we're doing vinyl fences in between residences and block walls along the exterior. So that should be a part of.
So the applicant can probably speak to what type of fencing that they're proposing. You are correct in that chain link fences are discouraged in the city and would not be appropriate, whether or not they're proposing to do vinyl or wood fence. This level of review at this point is just the architecture thing. The project itself has been approved, and so unless the map had specified a specific fence, they would have some flexibility on that. However, there is, as part of the conditions for a subdivision, a decorative block wall on the street frontage. So along the home street would be required to have that detail.
So, well, this was approved in 2003, and our standards have significantly changed since this was originally approved. And in the 6 years I've been on this commission, we have not allowed a chain link fence. And I'm not about to start. So I'd like to hear from the applicant. I don't know if any of the other commissioners have anything.
No, I mean, it kind of falls under landscaping, but, okay, with that, let's have the applicant, would he wish to come forth and?
Hello, everyone. Haney Farag, planner, CFO, designer, slashes in between. In regards to the fencing, and there is a lot of existing fencing already exists. All the back property lines surrounding the whole property is fenced. There is some in between block walls are existing already. So all what we have left is between the properties. And there is an elevation between the first and the bottom one is like over 30 feet difference. So each one has its own natural divider between each other. So we're kind of left it a little bit for future owners. They might have a better idea. I don't want to do fencing. The property is huge, and I'm just going to put fencing, and the fencing, the look of the fencing with that long, this is too long. I mean, this is over 5 acres. The fencing is going to pop and cover everything. It's going to be like an eyesore. So if we leave it to the owners, one will do wrought iron, one will do vinyl, one will do greens. It's going to look a lot better than if we just put fencing now and it's going to look odd.
Okay, so you're gonna leave it open. The problem with it being, without it being said, you can't put a certain type of fencing. I'm not saying you have to put a block wall in between all the properties. You have to put vinyl fencing in between every property. The properties are huge. If that's what you're saying, if people don't want a fence in between the property, I don't think they should have to put a fence in between their property. But if people are gonna put a fence in between properties, there's, like you said, there's chain link there now. We don't, I wanted to say we're not allowing chain link. And again, I know that this was approved in 2003, and this is the architectural review for the project, but this is the last time this is gonna come before us as a commission. And you're gonna have, these are beautiful looking homes, by the way. I mean, great job.
Thank you.
I just don't wanna, you have this beautiful community and somebody decides, like, they're gonna put in their own fence, right? They decide they're gonna put in chain link fence. And all of a sudden, it just brings down the aesthetics of that community and then the surrounding area. And that's not something that traditionally we have been, in 2021, have been agreeing.
Just my idea, I would prefer leave it open, all the fronts are open, and then if someone wants to put a fence, he will come back to you and tell you, okay, I want to put a fence, and then we'll have a permit for that too. So no one is gonna just do it,
One of the problems you have with fencing when homeowners are allowed to do it, and it's not planned as part of the community, is they don't necessarily come in and ask for a permit. They just put up whatever they want. And so that tends to take away from it. One of the problems I
I
have too
mean, the
is,
idea of a cul-de-sac area is enclosed already. I
Well,
don't know,
enclosed, but
if
some of
you
the
prefer
perimeter-
to put fences,
some of the perimeter fence is currently chain link though? Is that right?
I'm sorry.
Is some of the perimeter fence around the entire project, is some of that chain link, or what is the existing?
The existing chain links is either gonna be removed, or we're gonna try to plant IVs to cover it so you don't see it at all. You see a wall of green.
So it is existing chain link fence on the
The one
perimeter?
in front of us, on the street, yes,
street side.
that cannot be left like that. But we have one in the back, which is like, there's horses and stuff like that. And a lot of, there is a slope, and there will be trees coming to cover that chain link in the back, so it's not gonna be seen.
Yeah, well, I just think that's,
But whatever is seen, and it's obvious, I don't want it to imply on the design of the houses.
yeah. One thing too that I see, you have the floor plans. I know you have different elevations, but you have two floor plans next to each other. To the right, as you come in at the end of the cul-de-sac, you have three of the same floor plans. And then to the left, as you come in, two of the same floor plans. Now, they've got a little bit of elevation difference, but that's kind of unusual too for,
I'm not hearing well, I'm
previously
sorry.
approved.
Is it the different designs that we have?
Well, you have the same floor plans
It's not the
side
same
by
floor
side.
plans. I have three different designs.
Three different designs, but same floor plan, is that correct?
The ones like here, see the
Yeah,
green
like the
ones?
purples, the two purples.
Yeah, two
on the south.
purples. This is a different design. The three greens are different, and one
They're the
design.
same
Same floor plan, yeah. Same exact, the three are the same exactly, and the two are exactly the same, and then the other two exactly the same.
Right,
The only difference would be the color shades.
right.
So I would hope, I'm expecting to do different shades. I don't want to do it like the same, but definitely different colors between the green. The green is not green. I have light. I have a green just to mention that these are the same. But color-wise, the three will have different shades. And then the two, although they're the same plan, but they will have different shades. But overall, the group of colors that I have here as a sample.
Well, we're here this evening on the architectural design, and the fencing, I'm not sure, Ben, it is landscaping, so we're kind of in a gray area there. I mean,
Landscape.
So I suppose the plan commission could specify the property line dividing fencing, if there's a preferred material that they should employ with that, and working with the homeowners on that, or having it open, but, I don't think there's any CCNRs or anything that would be recorded that would have different restrictions, and, Commissioner Hitz is correct that there isn't necessarily permits required for fencing by homeowners later, unless it exceeds a certain height requirement that would trigger that review. So certainly if there's a preferred material choice, if it be vinyl fencing between the properties, then we could the planning commission could specify that as part of the overall material approval.
Okay. Anybody else, any other commissioners have questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Chair. It's for staff. In 2003, this was approved, right, with a set of conditions that included fencing or no, or do we know?
I don't recall offhand if there was any specificity on the fence material on the tentative map that was recorded.
But there were a set of conditions, and if that planning commission in 2003 wanted to make some kind of conditions relative to the fencing, they could have done that,
That is correct.
correct? Is fencing normally viewed as landscaping?
Sometimes as part of the overall architectural review or as part of a larger project, we'll try to get as much detail on the project of what's proposed to help assess it. Certainly with certain projects, we do have design guidelines for multifamily projects that specifies certain permitted fencing materials and those that are prohibited. For single-family subdivisions, we don't necessarily have that degree of specificity other than the decorative block wall along the street kind of facing segment. So essentially along Home Street, they would be required to do the decorative block wall along that corner.
All right, thank you. This is for the applicant. These are 30, what's the size range on these homes? 3750?
There is three different, each design has its own size. One of them, the Plan 2, which is the green ones, are 3,200 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms. And we have the purple ones are 3,750, which is still 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms. The 2 one-story ones, the red ones, are 3,400 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms.
Am I right, you would consider these higher end, they're going to be sold at higher end market rates?
I hope so.
And you don't have to answer this question, I'm just curious. What do you think the price range on these is going to be?
The price
The current
range to
market.
sell,
Yeah, yes.
the market is really hard to predict. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. The material's gone up really bad those days. Hopefully it comes back. But I think there will be in the range of maybe 800.
Okay.
It should be above than that, but I
think-
hope
Yeah,
always shoot for the lower. But hopefully the market will bring more. The more we put into it, the more the higher quality of materials that we put in.
yeah, I hope you're absolutely right, sir, that they go in the 800
Should
range.
go
I
up
would,
to 1 million, but the market, I don't think the area around will. It might. I hope.
my neighbor just sold his house for a figure that I thought was astounding. And so it wouldn't surprise me if you got what you're asking for. And you know, personally, I hope you do.
Right across the street, they just sold one. Right across, not far. It's just across the street. They sold it for $790. It's almost 800, which is much less than this. They don't have the lot. This is like half acre minimum. The other one didn't go like 0.3, and it was less rooms and less bathrooms. So this one here, I proposed also, and I have consideration of areas where we put swimming pools and areas where they can park mobile home, the RVs.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So hopefully that will bring different kind of people living there.
Thank you very much.
Any other commissioners have questions for the applicant? No questions. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Do we have any public comments on this one?
No, none on this item.
Okay, with that, then we'll close the public hearing and we'll move to the commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
with due respect to my fellow commissioners, I think we have some jurisdictional issues here on whether the planning commission has any further say-so on fencing for this project, since it was approved by another planning commission. The approval has been maintained continuously and in accordance with our code.
That's right. The map has recorded and it is a valid subdivision. So in theory, they could sell off individual lots and be built independent as well, but as part of this.
And I think any concerns about fencing in this area are going to be more than assuaged by the fact we're looking at $800 to $1 million homes, and I don't see people investing that kind of money and not putting in, I mean,
Chain link fence.
yeah, I don't think we have to worry about chain link fencing in this area.
Well, the chain link's already there.
It'll come out.
That's a part of the problem.
I think it'll come out. I can't see an investment in that kind of a home saying, boy, that chain link fencing really enhances our value up here.
Okay, Ben, let's get a yes or no. Does fencing fall under landscaping? Can we work that in or
I think there's a little bit of a challenge, as Commissioner Brzee kind of noted, the project itself has been recorded. So in theory, let's take a hypothetical situation, since it is legal lots, they sold off and did custom homes on each one. In that review process, none of this would have come back to Planning Commission, even for the architect's review. However, they are doing the individual houses, and as part of kind of that master development are proposing that. But in the other scenario, there would be no discretion by the Planning Commission for the fencing. The map itself has been recorded, and there are conditions pertinent to that that would need to be met on that. But certainly the purview here is more focused on the architectural review of the buildings themselves.
so then to discuss fencing would be beating a dead horse? I mean,
So I think we're just looking for clarification. If somebody was to come to us and say, hey, 20 years ago, we got this approved to put this circle, what are those old sheds in the backyards that people were putting in that we don't allow anymore? You know, the octagon looking ones?
The Quonset hut?
Yeah. That
So-
and they said, oh yeah, 20 years ago, we said this is what we're gonna do, it's approved, we just haven't done it. And now they're coming to us today. And if you were to look at our guidelines today, we would say no. But if you looked at the guidelines then, we would say yes, but it's been approved. So for my own information, I'm fine going whichever way we're supposed to go. But for my own information, this is the first time this has come up.
I think probably the variable that's different between the two scenarios is that this is a still valid project in that the map has recorded and that timeline has met the requirements. And the other alternative, the expiration date for that project would have came and went, a decade and a half ago anyways. And so after 15 years, whatever the rule requirements are, at that time, they would certainly be subject to the guidelines in this place. So it really comes down to what the standard was, when the project for the actual entitlement is occurring. In this case, the entitlement has been approved and those thresholds have already been met to subdivide the property. So they're individual legal lots of record at this point.
So if somebody 20 years from now comes forward, or 18 years from now comes forward and says, hey, I had this project approved in 2021, and even though it might have changed in, 2038, whatever it's gonna be, they would have met the guidelines today, which would have said, oh, you can only have this type of fencing.
I think kind of the difference on this one, though, that I didn't understand at first, is
Yeah.
these are recorded lots. So it's not like you're looking at the subdivision, and you could actually come in with one house on each lot and just go in and submit plans, right?
Yeah, that is correct. If the map hadn't been recorded and let's say they were resubmitting a new tentative map to go through the subdivision process, then you
I
would be
think we'd
correct
have-
that the new standards would
We'd
apply.
have jurisdiction over it then, but I don't,
But now we don't.
now we don't, since it's already recorded lots.
The only other caveat would be a vesting tentative map, but in that case, they would have done the architecture review at that time anyways. But that's not something that I think the city has ever processed, and
Yeah.
so.
Okay. I understand.
I think this will wind up being whoever purchases these homes.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be a negotiating factor when they buy the homes. And so, okay.
Make a motion that we approve, if I can find the right paper here. Case number 21079, architectural review.
Okay,
I'll second it.
we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Okay. Guess we move on to our next item, is a special use permit to permit 13 dogs on a single-family residence property.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman Algauer. Sorry, the mouse is being a little funky, so I'm trying to the right presentation. So as you mentioned, this is kind of a combined SUP, unique in that it's to permit 13 dogs on a single-family residential property. And this number is 8 more than the allowable 5, as well as an architectural review for some existing structures, which include a 504 square foot unpermitted barn, a 450 square foot kennel with a metal roof, and an unpermitted 152 square foot chain link roofed kennel to support the breeding of these dogs on a property located at 32260 Avenue E. The parcel itself is 0.91 acres and is on the north side of Avenue E. The zoning is RS 10M, single residential with a 10,000 square foot minimum lot size, so it's beyond that threshold, and is surrounded by other single-family residences. Per Development Code Section 84.0560H, lots which are greater than 20,000 square feet are permitted to have a maximum of 5 dogs. Otherwise, an SUP, a special use permit, is required for those excessive animals. The existing metal structures, as I mentioned, on site also trigger the SUP process, but for the architectural review of those unconventional building materials. So the accessory kennel use is kind of what I'll walk through first. So as I mentioned, 13 dogs would be permitted with this special use permit, and the applicant intends to breed golden retrievers, and so will be required to obtain a valid City of Yucaipa business license and renew it appropriately annually, as well as a public health permit with the county. The excessive dog component of this SUP will be required to be renewed annually as well, and inspections will be conducted by the Development Services Department, and a code enforcement officer will also attend on site. So the operational standards of the kennel will require all dogs to be registered and vaccinated, and so upon each renewal, we'll receive registrations, kind of proving that vaccination status and attain that with our records keeping folder. Noise levels are not to exceed the city standards as required by our development code, and all dogs are to be kept indoors from 8:30 p.m. to 8:30 a.m., as well as 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. And finally, all refuse is to be stored in approved containers, maintained appropriately. The site is currently improved with a approximately 20,700 square foot single family residence with an attached 300 square foot patio cover. There is a trailer in the back which has an existing oversized vehicle parking permit, a 500 square foot unpermitted metal barn, a 450 square foot unpermitted kennel, and an 152 square foot unpermitted chain link kennel. All of the existing structures fit within the single residential setbacks. So here are the elevations of the kind of existing structures with the metal roof. On the left-hand side, we have the 500 square foot barn, which is 13 feet tall and has a roll-up garage door, a man door, and kind of a unique pop-out feature at the peak. It's painted barn red with a white trim. The 450 square foot kennel is 12 feet tall, which with a pitched roof and matches the architecture of the other barn, and is also red with white trim. And then there's a photograph on the bottom of the 152 square foot chain link roof kennel, which would be a place for the kind of dogs to hang out. Here's a site photo, and then you can see kind of the barn in the back that's to be permitted through this SUP as well. So project notices were sent to surrounding property owners, and one response was received in support of the project and the dog breeding accessory use. And so it's staff recommendation that the architectural design of the existing metal structures, which will support the applicant's dog breeding accessory use on his property, are approved subject to the conditions of approval, and staff would be ultimately directed to file a notice of exemption with CEQA for the project. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. And Steve is also present here tonight, the applicant, and hopefully can provide some better insight onto his business practices. Thank you.
Commissioners, anyone have any questions for the applicant?
I'm just curious on the 2 to 4 p.m. inside during 2 to 4 p.m.
To be honest, I pulled kind of some conditions from a previously approved use. I would imagine it's maybe to support people that had odd working hours. Ben, maybe? I don't
They
know.
get 2 hours of sleep
I don't know.
from 2 to 4.
Coming home
No,
from
I'm just
school,
curious.
probably like the students coming home from school in the later afternoon and
No good reason that we
inside.
know of, at least.
No, it was tied with another SUP for dog breeding that had been approved in the past. I did not work on that project, so I don't recall what the history was, but since that was,
I
Approved.
just hate to put some arbitrary condition on there that might cause you to have to go out and enforce something for no reason. You know, I don't know.
Is
Just a
there
question.
a special licensing that they have to get to breed these animals through the county or state or whatever?
There's a public health permit that is required through the county. And then every dog is supposed to be registered with the city as well. And so every year upon the inspection, then he would provide proof of those certificates.
So then every year, he would be inspected by the county or someone?
Yeah, the county
make-
has their own inspections, I believe, but ours would be through the Development Services Department. Assuming I'm here longer into next year, I would probably be the one that goes out to the site around this time, assuming this project is approved. His expiration date would be, let's say, July, the end of July next year. And so we'd schedule an inspection, he'd submit the $189 renewal fee, and myself and a code officer would go and investigate the property. I have gone on a site inspection to the other existing accessory dog kennel breeding use, and that's what happened. We just kind of made sure everything complied with our code standards. Of course, we would have conditions of approval, so as you mentioned, Commissioner Hicks, we would be able to, enforce things if something happened to be complained about in the neighborhood, so.
How many other residential properties are hosting businesses like this throughout the city for dogs?
there's a small minority. I think there's 2 other ones that have dog breeding, and then there's another one that just has a lot of farm animals. And so they're not necessarily doing the breeding, but just more
Personal,
kind of use. But
And then we just approved the cat one, the cattery.
yeah, but that one's
That was-
certainly much larger scale than this one. But that is correct.
But that was also in a residential neighborhood like this is,
Correct.
over on Dunlap.
Okay, with that, would the applicant like to make a presentation?
I have a question for the applicant. Sir, do you want the condition of 2 to 4?
Wait a second, sir, could you step up to the microphone, please? Just state your name and that for our record address.
Steve Guthier, and I'm owner of Golden Kennel Breeders. I don't recall reading in the initial use permit, I didn't see, I could have missed it, but I didn't see that 2 to 4 p.m. thing. So I would like that waived. That would be kind of out of the norm. I can think of a reason to put it inside, and I mean, I could, but that'd be pretty burdensome.
Yeah.
I agree.
Is that, go ahead.
So ultimately, I think the planning commission can recommend that we remove that time period. as we don't know the circumstances of the other property, maybe there were complaints or other kind of compromises that were made for those different hours. So we could surely kind of take that off. If that's something.
Yeah, the plan commission can add or modify conditions as they see appropriate use.
And it's gonna be secure so the dogs can't get out into the neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for the applicant?
I have one question. On, so that's gonna be 13 adult dogs?
Yes. Well, they range. A couple of those dogs are only, right now, they're only like 4 months. And it'll fluctuate. Like currently, I've retired 5 dogs, so it's 13 today, but 2 of them will get rehomed next month. And then maybe 6 to 8 months from now, I'll get 2 new dogs. Never to exceed 13, but it would go, a lot of times it would go less than 13.
Okay, so that's on, like, if you had 11 females and 2 males, and you're breeding them, those females are gonna produce puppies over time, so that means there would be more than 13 dogs.
No, I would never do that. No, I
So-
don't have room for more than 13 dogs. It's working out pretty good just the way that it's sitting. And I've got like 3 retired dogs that are just my first original dogs that I would never get rid of. But now we're getting into, I just retired 4 more dogs. So as soon as they get fixed, you know, the whole process for a dog is pretty quick because we just do 4 straight litters with 1 girl and then she's done.
Oh,
And so she's only, I don't know, I just retired 2 dogs that are not even 4 yet. But their heat cycles are like every 5 months. So, I mean, the process is really quick, you know, and this will be the first time that we've rehomed any of our dogs. But we're getting ready to rehome 2 right now. They're ready to go as soon as they get fixed. And then I think in another 2 months, we're going to rehome another 2, you know, so then we'll be down to 9 dogs and I won't get 2 new dogs until next year.
okay.
All right, so it'll fluctuate like that, but it'll never go over. And even when it is 13 dogs at full capacity, probably at least 3 of those dogs are under 4 months. So they're basically just puppies.
Okay.
And Commissioner Beck, if I may point out that the staff report talks about a newborn animal exemption, which is in our development code. And so those which are less than 4 months and have not been weaned, those aren't contributed towards the maximum density.
dogs,
So
okay.
say a litter had, I don't know how many puppies are born in a
9,
litter.
yeah. Yeah, they have a lot. That's-
But those wouldn't be counted, and we would imagine that they would be adopted and
Okay,
endowed. So.
okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question of staff. And thank you for that presentation, Ms. Jordan. Can you tell us about the renewal a year from now, if it's approved? What happens then? Is this a permit that expires and then they have to reapply and meet all the current requirements that may be put in place in the interim? Or is there different criteria for a renewed SUP?
So the renewal process would essentially just be submitting like the cover sheet of our special use permit indicating that it's a renewal application. I actually just took one in today. And then we would ask for documentation of the existing dogs. So Mr. Gauthier mentioned that he has 13 dogs currently, but might be rehoming some and then next year getting some more. So we would want a list of all of the existing animals and their names and then their approved registrations, which indicate their vaccination status. And of course, some of them they're not going to be vaccinated on the exact same day given, you know, them being birthed at different times. So we would just take those in and assume upon the next renewal that they would have been updated or gotten their proper vaccinations if they expired in like a 3-month window prior to the next renewal, if that makes sense.
But essentially the approval would be a revolving, where it would stay consistent. So they would renew prior to the end of the year.
Next
And then that approval retains. So it's the same project, but it's more of a check process to make sure that the conditions are being held to and that there hasn't been any nuisance related complaints received by code enforcement that would.
That was my other question.
warrant-
If you
yeah.
consult code enforcement before you do the
Yeah,
renewal.
code enforcement can visit the site. And so the annual inspection would be the biggest component of that renewal process, where you go out and say, for example, I did go on one kind of when I first started here, and there's permitted 13 dogs, but there's 30 full-grown dogs in the backyard. Like, that's something then that you would realize upon inspection.
One other question has to do with noticing, because I see this as something where if the neighbors don't have a problem with it, and apparently there's dogs there and they, I mean, nobody showed up. How is this, a project like this noticed? Is it mailed notice to everyone within so many feet of the applicant's property, or?
It's a contiguous property owner's notice. So this is the kind of a two-component SUP, as I mentioned. So, and both of those would trigger the neighboring properties that touch the property or are across the street from the property.
So either side, behind, and
Yes.
across the street. And if anybody 2 doors down was concerned about it, they would have to keep an eye on our agenda, or they would not get personal notice, right?
They would not get a personal notice. They could surely, contact code enforcement if the noise was kind of exceeding and protruding into their properties. And we would do our due diligence and research and could further investigate from there.
Is this a code enforcement initiated approval
Yes.
from complaints, or?
It wasn't complaints about the dogs. I think it was the metal structures that were on the property that could be seen from the street.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, this project itself, the animal keeping or raising, was not the source of the complaint. It was, I think, unpermitted construction that had triggered code enforcement.
Okay,
The barns that were a part of this approval as well.
all right, thank you.
Okay, do we have any public comment on this one?
No public comments received on this item.
Okay, then we'll close the public hearing and we'll move to the commissioners.
I think we should approve the project, but take out the. he has
The
to-
hour.
Yeah, the 2 to 4 thing.
Yeah. Is that a motion?
Yeah, I will make a motion that we approve case number 21-039, special use permit and architectural review, with the condition that we remove, but when they have to bring them inside from 2 to 4 p.m.
So condition number 13, remove the time limit B from that.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Now, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None, motion carries. So then we'll move to a land use compliance review to construct a 1,198 square foot detached dwelling. Are you taking Jordan?
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chairman Algar. So this is a land use compliance review for a detached accessory dwelling unit and a special use permit with architectural review to construct a 754 square foot garage and 462 square foot garage, which will be attached to this ADU. And the property is located at 34931 Date Avenue. So it's a 0.3 acre parcel and is on the south side of Date and east side of 2nd Street. The zoning is RS 72C with a minimum 7,200 square foot lot size and is surrounded by other single family residential uses. Per AB 68, which is state legislation, the 1,198 square foot one-story ADU is to be approved ministerially through the planning department. But the 2 garages which are connected to this unit require planning commission review and approval because the total footprint of this structure now exceeds 1,200 square foot, which is a trigger for a special use permit process. So here's the site plan, which indicates the existing 926 square foot single family residence, as well as the proposed 2,414 square foot unit, which will include those 2 garages, 754 square foot and 462. There's a proposed new driveway to provide access to the rear unit off of Date Avenue, and the unit fits within all setbacks. 10 feet from the rear, 100 from the front property line, 10 feet from the east, and 24 feet from the west. So here's the floor plan on the screen. You can see the 462 square foot garage is towards the front of the structure, and then the 754 square foot is at the rear. And in the elevations, you'll kind of see the two roll-up doors, but the two-car garage has a standard kind of large roll-up door, and then the 754 square foot structure has two individual roll-up doors. And so here's those elevations. The materials will include stucco siding with veneer accents and a composition shingle roof, which will match the existing front house. And then as I indicated, there's the standard two-car garage with one roll-up door, two individual roll-up doors on the additional garage. The structure will have a gable roof and a peak height of 15.5 feet. So here's a photo of the site. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with the kind of old tale of the Watcher's house, but this was that house and has since been renovated quite significantly, and so it looks pretty nice. And here's an additional vantage point. That stucco siding on that side elevation is what will be the material choice primarily for the additional unit. And there's that existing stucco. So project notices were sent to surrounding property owners, and I received 2 responses via the phone that expressed concern over this ADU potentially being rented out, and therefore they would be losing privacy in their rear yard. But pursuant to AB 68, which passed in January of 2020 last year and went into effect, legislation provides for accessory dwelling units and permits this accessory use on all single-family residential properties. And per our municipal code, those structures can be up to 1,200 square feet in size, which this ADU does comply, and as I indicated, is a ministerial approval. So it's staff's recommendation that the project is approved and that a categorical exemption is adopted for this accessory structure on site, and I can answer any questions, hopefully, and I believe the applicant is also present if you have any particular questions for him.
Thank you. Thank you, Jordan. Anyone have any questions for the staff at this time? Would the applicant like to make a presentation? No. Okay. With that, we'll close the public hearing and move to the commissioners. I'm not hearing anything.
I will make a motion that we approve case number 21-042, land use compliance review, and the special use permit, and the architectural review for this case. And items A through D.
I'll second that.
Well, we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chair, can I just apologize for the late question of staff? We have limited ability because of the state regulations, right, on accessory dwelling units?
Yeah.
So what we're looking at here, we can't thumbs up, thumbs down on the ADU. We can only look at the garage. So if we said, ooh, we really don't like this, then what, they sever the plans and just build the ADU?
Yeah. If for what you're approving is the larger footprint of this structure as a whole. So since it's beyond 1,200 square feet, I guess you recommend that the garages are detached from the ADU unit itself. It was my personal belief that the garages were being in place to help accommodate parking and avoid on-street parking. And I did drive down that street, and it's kind of a narrow road. And so if you were renting it out, which is legal, and had a visitor or something like that on the street, then you might kind of increase traffic along that roadway. But yeah, it is just the garages themselves that you're kind of weighing in on.
That is correct. And then it should be noted that the garages themselves are not required, or covered parking is not required for an ADU, so this goes above and beyond what state law
The threshold.
would require.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
Okay. With that, All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we move to our next item, special use permit for architectural review of a 12-foot tall, 630 square foot unpermitted metal RV carport.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman Alguer. So this is a metal RV carport, which will remain open on 3 sides and is located on a single-family residential property at 12987 Columbia Avenue. The site is approximately 1.26 acres and is zoned RS20M with a 20,000 square foot minimum lot size and is surrounded by other single-family residential uses to the northeast and west. However, south of the property, there's a San Bernardino County flood control drainage easement, and that runs approximately 50 feet off of the southwest portion of the property in the rear. Here's a site plan which indicates the 2,330 square foot single-family residence, which is currently on site, a 256 square foot garage, 600 and 888 square foot horse pens, as well as 2 sheds that are both 120 square feet and therefore do not require building permits. And then the existing unpermitted 630 square foot detached carport, which is to be permitted through this process and fits within all required setbacks. Here's a basic picture of the floor plan. It's really just a carport with nothing else surrounding it. So 654 square feet box. And then here's the elevations. The carport will feature a pitched metal roof that is 12 feet tall and is painted white, but per fire standards is going to be remained open on 3 sides to kind of meet those requirements. Here's a photo of the site. You can kind of see the sloping of the property and the drainage area, but it's kind of on that rear portion on the eastern side. Project notices were sent to surrounding property owners and no responses were received. And it's staff recommendation that the project is approved per the conditions of approval and a categorical exemption is adopted. I don't believe the applicant is present tonight, but if you have any questions, I hopefully can answer them.
Thank you, George. Anyone have any questions for staff at this time?
Mr. Chairman, is this another code enforcement?
This was a code case, yes. And it is being permitted through the SUP process so that they can resurrect the structure. I believe it was in the process of being put up and then had a violation.
Somebody complained that somebody was building a,
Yeah, for unpermitted construction, I believe. I don't know the exact circumstances of the complaint.
I don't recall if it was complaint-driven. Usually with any sort of unpermitted construction that's observed by code enforcement, they'll flag that
Themselves
proactively
too,
just
yeah.
because once it's permitted, it tends to be a lot harder to fix any permitting issues later on, so.
all right, thank you.
Is this an existing unit that was on another property that's
Yeah.
been moved to Yucaipa?
Yes.
And all the materials are from the existing unit, right?
Yeah. It was on a different property previously, and yeah, as Ben said, I believe it was kind of being put up and then was flagged, and now they're permitting it. So it will have to be inspected by the building and safety department too, and have an as-built building permit. I don't know the status on how much structure is currently standing right now. I couldn't see through the front of the property today when I went to visit.
So, and these RV, it's not a permanent structure basically, but they have to be permitted.
That is correct. Anything over 120 square feet,
Yeah.
building does require, and then per kind of the building kind of code provisions is anything that's standing up for more than 6 months is no longer a temporary structure. And so in that case, it does trigger the building permit
Permit,
review.
okay.
Did the applicant wish to make a statement? Okay. With that, we'll close the public, do we have any public comments? So-
No comments received on this item.
Okay, with that, we will close the public comments and move back to the commissioners.
I'll move staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Ben?
All right, no major announcements. The AVA Planning Committee, or American Viticulture Area Planning Committee, did have our first meeting last month, and our next meeting is scheduled for July 20th. So our Planning Commission representatives are encouraged to attend and be part of that discussion. But it was a productive first kickoff for the Phase 2 project, and looking forward to that materializing, and then certainly coming back to the Planning Commission once that's a little bit more kind of fully vetted as well. Yes. 4 o'clock.
I got a question. What was this for?
That was a public comment that was received for items not on it, but it was sent via email. So because of that, we had distributed it to the Planning Commission. But it's just a public comment that someone had.
Okay. With that, any other? Okay, I guess meeting adjourned.
All right. No meeting, the second meeting of July, but